Good morning. Weekend review for COSC 1337. I know we covered a lot of topics. There's some topics that I want to make sure students understand, right? So, first topic is the stack and free and the heap. Okay, so if you're going to remember something from week one, is remember this memory. If we go back a little bit, I went over the high level overview of how memory is allocated to programs, right? So we may have OneNote, Visual Studio Code, maybe Hello World program, and other programs running on in memory. Each memory that's allocated consists of stack, heap, or free memory, little memory, stack memory, and code memory when Mac and Linux OSs, right? Is this the exact order that this appears in memory? Maybe, maybe not. But the important thing here is to know the concepts of how memory works, right? So we then took a deeper look at the stack and the heap memory. So the stack memory is limited. It's usually around 1024 kilobytes. Last in, first out memory. I will explain that, but simply assuming there's a main program that calls a hello world program. So the main program is loaded onto memory into a stack frame. And when the function hello is called, that one's loaded onto memory. So now we have two functions in memory. Hello world was the last one in, so it's the first one out. So it exits, then this memory is released, and then this memory is released when the program exits, okay? One other thing about stack memory, it's sequential memory, and the OS with C++ usually manages the memory most all the time, right? All the time, sorry. The heap memory is larger, maybe 2 to 4 gigabytes in size, and this is where objects like the string and vector, which we've not covered yet, are putting their data, and I'll show in future lectures how this works. C++ along with the operating system will manage this memory, but a developer can also manage this memory using a concept known as dynamic memory, which again we will cover later in the semester. This is random memory, meaning if we have a list, then there's an algorithm that runs and it'll find a memory chunk that's large enough to place that list on, okay? So that's one thing I really want you all to remember. Also, another thing I want you all to remember is the C++ core language and the C++ standard library. Recall that without the standard library, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to create a meaningful C++ program, okay? You can, but it'll be a lot more work. So using the standard library, we can use objects that give us functionality. For example, we talked about the character output or the cout object that's in the IOStream header in the standard namespace or the stud namespace for C++. We've not covered character input yet, but I've mentioned it. That's to capture data from keyboard. Other objects in the C++ standard library is the list or a vector in C++, which would maybe have a string, a list of strings like Joe, Mary, and so forth, and then a string which has a sequence of characters. Again, we've not covered this, but I will in the coming lectures, okay? The core language has basic keywords functionality like the if, the while, the for, data types like int or whole numbers, char, character, bool, true or false, right? And we'll cover more of these topics in this coming week. Okay, one other thing I want you all to remember is that although C++ has a lot of data types, we'll focus on a subset, right? On a limited subset. Integer, whole numbers, double for decimals, char for characters, string for names, and bool for true and false, okay? Why? Because this will give us enough to learn the more important concepts like a function, reference parameters, object-oriented programming, inheritance, virtual functions, which enable us to implement polymorphism, And then we can even go into memory management techniques just using these data types, right? So you don't have to remember all the data types that exist on C++, okay? Okay, the development process in this class. Write code to test your code. If it passes, then you can use it in your program. If it doesn't pass, then go back, fix the code you've written, run the unit test again, and once it passes, you can use it in main. Once main runs without issues, then you can eventually turn it onto GitHub for grading, okay? So recall I stated that GitHub is on the cloud. Each student gets their own allocation to a sandbox or a playground on the cloud, right? So student A, B, and C would get their own files, and then they download their files to their computer, right? So you work on your homework assignment on your laptop. Once you get through the development process successful, then you can send the information back to GitHub. We've not done that in class yet, but I will demonstrate how to do that. Once it's up in the cloud, you submit your assignment in Blackboard. Blackboards will send a request to me for grading. I will download your source code to my computer. I will grade it. I will provide feedback and eventually provide a grade and put it in Blackboard for you. Okay. Okay, and then finally, we were introduced to Visual Studio Code. To open your source code in Visual Studio Code, you can go to File, Open Folder, navigate to where you saved your source code. Select the folder where your source code is, Fall 2021. Select Folder, and that'll open your source code. It's an integrated development environment for C++, and you can also do other types of development, but for the purposes of this course, we're focusing on C++ development, right? So once you download the source code from GitHub to your computer, then you can open it in GitHub, right? So let me, okay. Once you download the source code, then the Visual Studio Code configuration detects that your program has C++ and CMake code in your files, and you get a prompt like this. At this time, you want to select one of the compilers, right? So if you don't see this one, then select this one. Right? But if you see GCC 9.2.0, go ahead and select it. What you are doing here is you're telling Visual Studio Code, yes, this is C++ code. Use this C++ compiler to go ahead and help me build the code, right? So briefly, we have examples for the whole course. All of them are pre-configured. I will be typing code to these examples as I show different concepts, right? And then for each example, we have test, which allows us to follow our development process, which is write code, test, and then main if the test passes, and then finally, if everything's running good, then upload to GitHub, okay? Likewise for homework, we have the homeworks here that you all will be working on, and the homework test files, okay? Okay, we come back here, so Visual Studio Code, for what we're using it, will be very simple. You click on this icon here to bring up the Explorer that shows you a layout of the files in your folder, okay? You click on CMake right here, and if you don't see any files here, then you click on this icon to configure projects. At that time, CMake will read the CMake files and get your project ready to run C++ programs, okay? And you can run a C++ program by going here. For example, we want to run the Hello World program. We right click on that option, on that selection, and then we say run in terminal. And you can see the output of the program right here. We just have to wait a little bit. And then you can see the program ran, displayed Hello World. And here is the program it ran. So we have the very simple C++ program that allows us to display Hello World to screen. Okay, so that is what we covered this week. We also went over the first data type, integer. We wrote some code for integer. So we come here, right here. So we had int echo variable int num. So remember this, we're just making a promise to C++ that we will write code for this function later. When is later, we go into this function. This file, intcpp. Does the file have to be named int? No, I just named it that. We say include. We want to include int.h, so we want this file to be included here. And then we can go ahead and run the file. Notice here, no semicolon, open close curly brace, and we simply say return num. Once we do that, our function is ready. Do we use it in main? No, we do not use it in main. We come back into our test and we write a test case for that, right? So we say include int.h, and then we can use this file as a template, this example as a template to write our test case. We verify, we say echo variable function should return parameter value. And then we go ahead and say, okay, if I call echo variable with the value 5, it should be equal to 5. And we'll go ahead and run this code. So we go here to CMake, we go to the test, we go to examples, data types, ex01 test, run in terminal. And we see the test passed. We want to see detail, click right here after hello world, up arrow, dash S enter, and now we see that it shows us that echo variable 5 equals 5. If we want to see the code fail, we can write code that we know will fail. So if it returns the value, we know that 5 will not be equal to 6. So let's see that one fail. So we go and we run it. After, notice that it shows the piece of code where our code failed. And that's where we are at the end of week 1. Okay, so thank you. Have a good day.